Hello folks, and welcome to another marvelous video. I'm your host Will, and in the past we've gone over various aspects of the planet Pandora, from its animals to its plants to its dangers. But in this video, we're gonna do a bit of a course correction and go into the society of the various Na'vi people on the planet. Let's get to it. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of Avatar? Most people would say it's the visual spectacle, and I kinda get where you're coming from. The bioluminescent jungle, the floating mountains, and the high-stakes battles between technology and nature are definitely hard to forget. But I think there's more to Avatar than that. The Na'vi are more than just science fiction set dressing or a one-dimensional cliche. Everything that we know about them is intentional, and James Cameron did a marvelous job at creating them. So, in this video, I'll take you guys on this journey where I'll dissect the Na'vi people and give you the jaw-dropping societal structure that they function on. So grab a snack and let's get to it. The foundation of Na'vi society: Ewa, balance, and collective identity. To understand the Na'vi, the first thing you have to do is get rid of the human concept of religion. Na'vi don't have a religion. They don't have debate over the existence of gods, because their god, Ewa, is everywhere. For them, spirituality isn't a choice, it's a reality. So surprise! Ewa is quite literally present within the biology of Pandora. She is always present, and she feels everything. Everything from the leaves to the ground you walk on has Ewa in it. From a scientific perspective, Ewa is this huge neural network, as Grace Augustine noted. Think of it like this. The trees of Pandora are like the satellites that process information, and that results in electrochemical communication. And that electrochemical communication between them is as complex as our neural network. This neural network, while being one of the most complex networks possible, also acts as the overarching force of their existence. So you could say that this physical network also acts as the collective identity. I think you would agree if I said humans are selfish. I mean, we see ourselves as individuals first, and then as members of the Earth. But the Na'vi aren't like that. In their eyes, they are the extension of Ewa first. They are the temporary manifestation of Ewa's energy, and because of this, they do their best to ensure the balance between Ewa and them is well maintained every step of the way. Ask yourself this simple question. How many times have you chucked that plastic into the paper section of the garbage? Don't lie to yourself now. I know I haven't been the best at recycling, but for the Na'vi people, that is a social law. They can literally plug into the planet via Tsahelu, the neural bond, and learn how Ewa is feeling, which, as you can guess, creates a strong feedback loop with the environment. If the Na'vi overhunt or destroy their ecosystem, they face a resource shortage and also feel the pain from the network. As a result, the ethics they have in place are based on equilibrium with the environment. Sure, technological advancement would be nice, but we know firsthand what happens when you try to do that. And given how connected the Na'vi are with the Ewa, there is no way they would be able to do that and not feel the pain that mass deforestation causes. Another big social stabilizer in their community is the collective memory. Through the spirit trees, the Na'vi people can literally upload and download memories. You know what this means, right? Their history can never be misinterpreted or misunderstood. This would be so cool in English classes. Imagine if you could just connect with the author and ask them if the blue curtains were just blue or some symbolism that your teacher is trying to shove down your throat. But coming back to the Na'vi, because of this, the history is literally stored in the living tissue of the planet. When they speak with their ancestor, in a way, they are actually doing it. They are accessing a hard drive, which is why we can see that the Na'vi have a cultural continuity. There are no generation gaps in Na'vi culture because the wisdom of a great-grandmother is accessible enough that you can reach it. And there's less chance of history repeating itself because the ancestors who made those mistakes are literally there. Speaking of spirituality, we should also talk about how the Na'vi people deal with guilt and sin. From my perspective, I would say that guilt and sin are two big concepts of any religion around the world. Religions include acts of repentance, because we experience guilt and sin. So I kinda expected that I would see some kind of guilt or sin at play when it comes to the Na'vi people, but they only focus on connection. Every time they do the Tsahelu, whether it is with a dire horse, an Ikrin, or a partner. They are performing a part of their ethics. For them, being unconnected is the greatest tragedy that a Na'vi can face. No hikikomori life for the Na'vi, and that is probably the biggest reason why the Na'vi society is so against the RDA's technology. In their eyes, the RDA is dead because it's something entirely dependent on machines. Therefore, it has no Q, no neural interface, and no place in the Great Mother. So can you blame them for not wanting an industrial boom? I don't. And as for Eywa, she does not take sides. She protects the balance, and that creates a society that is both compassionate and unsentimental about the cycle of life. They understand that for the forest to live, things must die. The acceptance of death comes with the understanding that the energy of the life form must go back to the Eywa, and this return of energy is why, even when they are in the face of total war, they remain grounded. Because for the Na'vi, war is just an aggressive way to maintain the sacred balance. They don't care if they will end up in hell or heaven. If they lay down their life for a great cause, like maintaining the balance that Eywa created, they die happy. I know, it's hard to believe that, isn't it? I guess we all should learn how to be selfless from the Na'vi. Na'vi social hierarchy and leadership, how power actually works. When observing the Na'vi, it is very easy to use the typical terms like king and general to describe the social hierarchy, but the actual Na'vi dynamics are far more complicated than that. In the Na'vi governance, there are 2 leadership models instead of 1. I know, you're wondering why they need 2, right? Well, think of it like this. One of them is focused more on the physical realm, while the other is focused more on the spiritual realm, creating a balance within the clan with their words. At the head of every clan, you have 2 central figures, the Olo Ektan and the Tsahik. The Olo Ektan is the clan leader or the chief, but their power isn't absolute. The Olo Ektan is responsible for the physical well-being of the clan. They lead the hunters, make decisions regarding migration or defense, and when there is conflict, they act as the primary strategist. Now, this role is earned through merit, skill, and respect of the people. While the position could be hereditary, it isn't guaranteed. The leader has to prove themselves to be capable of leading. Like in the Omatikaya clan, we see the transition of leadership from Atakan to Jake Sully, simply because Jake Sully proved that he could protect the people. This is the role that is more focused on the physical realm, as I told you. And to balance out Olo Ektan, you have the Tsahik, the spiritual matriarch. She is the interpreter of the goddess, while the Olo Ektan is the voice of the people. She is the one who maintains the oral traditions, performs the most sacred rituals, and reads the signs of Eywa. This is a role of immense power, and often exceeds that of the Olo Ektan in matters of law and tradition. In the Na'vi society, you cannot go to war, move the clan, or change any major custom without the blessing from the Tsahik. She ensures that the movement and the actions of the clan don't violate the spiritual laws of the balance. And this, as you have guessed, is the spiritual center of the clan. Pretty dope, isn't it? What really fascinates me about the structure is the gender dynamics. The Na'vi society is largely non-patriarchal. We usually see males as Olo Ektans and females as Tsahiks. But that does not mean that the roles have a difference in power. They are equals. The relationship between the two is like a partnership. They are often mates, but not always. And this kind of a relationship also acts as a safety check, you know? If the Olo Ektan becomes too aggressive or bloodthirsty, the Tsahik acts as a check on that power. If the Tsahik ever ends up too detached from reality, the Olo Ektan keeps the clans fed and safe. Okay, but what about the people under them? I hear you say. Do they have classes? My dear viewer, this kind of smooth hierarchy is noticed throughout the Na'vi. There is no complex bureaucracy or lower class. Instead, the status is determined by contribution and the rites of passage. Every person in the clan has a voice. In the first film, we see the importance of becoming one of the people. Until a Na'vi or an outsider like Jake completes their training and makes their first kill, they are considered to be a child in the eyes of the law. Once they pass, they are a part of the people, and then they hold an equal stake in the collective future. This is also probably why Neytiri and Jake professed their love for one another after he became a part of the people. He got his pick of the women, and he chose right. I am Team Neytiri all day. Also, have you noticed that for the Na'vi, the leadership isn't set in stone? When things are good, you have the leaders I have mentioned, but when things are bad, there is a failsafe protocol. During the time of Soror, a rare figure can emerge who we know as the Toruk Makto. This is a temporary role as a supreme commander. Toruk Makto is beyond the individual clan boundaries and hence can lead the entire species, which is basically an emergency protocol for total unity. Another huge trait we have to talk about is that the Na'vi people don't have a police force or a prison system. That would 100% not work on Earth. We are far too violent for that. But because of Eywa, this is possible on Pandora. The social order is maintained through collective pressure and shared connection to Eywa. The only punishment they have is exile, and this fate is worse than death for a species that thrives on neural and social connections. Power in Na'vi society comes from the ability to protect and harmonize the entire group of people. When Jake Sully takes the leadership, he does it by proving that he can harmonize with the most dangerous creature in their sky. And that, my friends, is the greatest sign for the Na'vi that Jake has the seal of approval from Eywa.
They have demon blood!
The Na'vi clans. Civilization. Many ways of life. The first people we ever met from Pandora were the Omaticaya people. While they are a part of the Na'vi, they are not the only kind of Na'vi, you know? They are a global civilization that is divided into hundreds of clans, and each has a unique expression of the environment it inhabits. I will admit, when the trailer for the new movie came out, it was very much like everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. But here's the thing, despite their differences, all the clans we are introduced to are Na'vi. There are no different races or species. The differences we do see are clearly a result of evolution. For example, take the Metkayina people, whom we met in the Way of Water. Their physiology is vastly different from that of their forest cousins because they live near the ocean. They have broader tails for swimming, nictitating membranes to protect their eyes underwater, and thicker, almost paddle-like forearms. Their entire culture is centered around the Tulkun, these highly intelligent, sentient marine animals with whom they share a deep spiritual bond. For these people, the Way of Water isn't just a mantra, it's a social philosophy that emphasizes fluidity and the understanding that the sea gives and the sea takes, much like the jungle takes and the jungle gives for the Omaticaya people. In contrast, we have the Omaticaya people, whose lives are vertical as they live in the canopy of the giant home trees. Their skill is focused on climbing, archery, and bonding with a mountain banshee known as the Ikrin. For these people, the forest is their protective womb. In the recent movie, Avatar: Fire and Ash, we are also introduced to the Mangkwan, the Ash people. Now, Omaticaya and Metkayina were peaceful, loving, and generally friendly. They both had the same rule: RDA bad, Eywa good. But the Mangkwan? No, they're nothing like that. See, there was a catastrophic eruption that destroyed their home tree and many of their kin. This destruction led to the Mangkwan feeling abandoned by Eywa. As a result, they had a radical cultural shift. Instead of focusing on the balance and the three laws, they focused on dominance and rage to survive. Led by Varangd, the Ash people utilize and worship the destructive purity of the fire, as it was the only thing that did not fail them when the world burned. Which is why it makes total sense when you see them ally with RDA and utilize human technology, showing that the Na'vi people are not beyond corruption. There are also the lesser seen clans mentioned in the lore. We are told about the Olangi people, who roam the plains on dire horses, and the Teirangi people, who are known for their incredible aerial skills on the cliffs. Each clan is a master of their own backyard, and this means that whenever one particular element is threatened, there are others who have the knowledge that is needed to defend it. I don't mean to sound mean, but let's be real. If we humans were on Pandora, Pandora would be having wars everywhere. And that is why the Na'vi are better than us. They have a decentralized survival strategy that is done to keep the balance in check, as we discussed earlier. There is no drive for expansion amongst the Na'vi because they already know exactly where they are meant to be. But despite the differences, you can tell that they are the Na'vi, just different aspects of it. And this brings us to the inter-clan interaction model. Now, all of these clans are largely self-sufficient. They are not isolated at all. They have trade, but it's mostly for cultural exchange. We also see that there are inter-clan gatherings for major spiritual events or in response to global threats. The unity of the clans is a powerful force, even when it's dormant. While they don't have a global government, the Na'vi people don't need it, as Eywa keeps all of them connected. And that is why when we see the Ash people, it makes sense why they fell for the RDA and their propaganda. They are actively choosing to reject Eywa. hence severing the connection with the Great Mother. Another crucial cultural constant that we have to talk about when we're on the topic of clan cultures is the Inknamaya. This is the path to adulthood. In every clan, you have one specific animal to bond with and one specific terrain to conquer in order to be an adult. The Omaticaya people claimed an Ikrin. For the Metkaina people, it's the bond with an Ilu. They have to bond and survive the experience. This is a shared rite of passage, and it reaffirms to every Na'vi the importance of the Tisahelu. The experience of being seen is shared amongst everyone on this planet, and that is what binds the civilization together. Daily life and cultural practices. Survival, training, and identity. Even though for us outsiders, it may look like the Na'vi people are always struggling to survive, in reality, they have the life I dream of. In a lot of ways, I think that the Na'vi prioritize spiritual connection amongst its people, and that is what a healthy lifestyle should be like. Instead of engaging in a corporate rat race, the Na'vi focus on something called skill transmission. From the moment a Na'vi can walk, they are immersed in the active classroom of the world. They learn through songs and dance about the properties of the plants, the predators they need to watch out for, and the history of the clan. This is an oral culture of passing down history where memory is sacred. Since they don't have a written language in the traditional sense, every Na'vi is like a living library. They use song chords, which are braided strings with beads and charms to record their personal and collective histories. Each bead represents a milestone, like a birth, a first hunt, a great loss. By touching the chord and reciting the associated song, they maintain a tangible link to their past. The one thing that I am extremely jealous of when it comes to the Na'vi is their bond with animals. When a Na'vi hunter connects their cue to a dire horse or an Ikrin, they share the same nervous system. They can feel everything about the animal, from its heartbeat to its fear. This creates a culture of extreme empathy, because you cannot really be cruel to an animal when you can feel the pain you inflict on it. The Na'vi culture is based on daily tisahelu to ensure that no one ever thinks that the idea of a self is a closed loop. It is more like something that extends into others, which would be perfect for a pet lover like me, because I will finally understand why my cats love eating plastic as much as they do. Every pet owner knows the horrible sound of their beloved pet treating a piece of plastic as fine dining. Speaking of which, let's talk about art and music. These are more than hobbies in the Na'vi culture. They are integral parts of the social functions. Music is used to synchronize the clan's energy. Every time they sing, whether it's a hunting chant or a lullaby, the music brings them together and creates this literal resonance. Speaking of which, let's talk about their material culture. Their clothes, bows, and hammocks are biodegradable and handcrafted. They do it because they believe an object should have a life and a spirit. The bow is a piece of the home tree that has been invited to serve the hunter, and when something breaks, it returns to the earth. But these are all the things that we see on the screen. What about the things that we don't see? The movies undoubtedly always focus on the warrior aspect of the Na'vi life, but there's so much more to them than that. The majority of their life, if I had to guess, is spent doing more mundane tasks. They weave, gather, and prepare food and raise children. The warrior is a role they step into only when the balance is threatened. Their natural state can be best described as one of active observation. A Na'vi can spend hours sitting in silence and simply listening to the forest. This isn't boredom, it's more like a form of data collection and meditation. They are constantly monitoring the health of the network. Finally, there is the rejection of the primitive label. The Na'vi have a deep understanding of anatomy, biology, and ecology that arguably surpasses our own. I mean, think about it. No cues in the pharmacy. You get hurt, you go to the jungle, you put a paste of leaves and berries on you, and boom! 2 days later, you are healed. There is literally no ecological waste, no pharma company pushing expensive medicine on you, and by the guiding growth of trees or breeding specific traits in their mounts, they shape their world without scarring it. Their daily life is the living proof that a high quality of life comes from a high level of connection with your surroundings, and not from a high carbon footprint, if you get what I mean. Life bonds, death, and remembrance. What the Na'vi believe about life's end. Perhaps the most beautiful and the most misunderstood aspect of Na'vi culture is how they handle the bookends of life, love and death. I always looked at death as a tragedy. The person I love is suddenly gone. I don't know where they've gone, but they aren't here. As a child, my parents would tell me that they turned into a star in the night sky, but that's a lie, and we all know that. The only comfort we have as adults is that the person we loved has passed on and they live in our memories. For the Na'vi, however, death is a homecoming. They know that their consciousness is a gift of energy borrowed from Ewa. They view the end of life as the return of that energy to the source, much like the way Buddhist monks view life and death. Let's start with the mating bonds. While not every detail of Na'vi romance is laid out for us, the canon suggests that the Na'vi mate for life. This is because even romance has a neurological connection. When two Na'vis mate, they connect their Q, which is the ultimate form of intimacy and vulnerability. This creates a bond that is incredibly difficult to break, which is why it makes sense when someone has a legit crash out after their partner dies. It's an emotional loss, but also a phantom limb of their social and neural existence. Something that made them whole is no longer there. This lifelong pairing provides a stable foundation for the family units that make up the clan, and that is why death hits so hard for them. Then you have the death and mourning. The Na'vi have a different perspective when it comes to it. It's deeply unsentimental but very respectful. They don't fear death, but they do feel the weight of a life ending. When a hunter kills an animal for food, they perform a small ritual of thanks, acknowledging that the energy of the animal will now be used to sustain the people. When a Na'vi dies, the same ritual is carried out, but on a grander scale. They are buried within the roots of the trees of souls or the trees of voices, which allows their physical body to be broken down and reabsorbed by the neural network of Pandora. This is where remembrance comes into play. For the Na'vi, the person is still there. By just connecting to the spirit trees, they can literally hear the voices and see the memories of those who have passed. This, in turn, creates a unique social dynamic where the dead are still active participants in the culture. They are consultants, storytellers, and keepers of law. Now, doing this to talk to your dead loved ones might be considered a mental illness on Earth, but on Pandora, it is a solemn, sacred act. They carry the past with them in the most literal and physical way. Not gonna lie, I kinda like that. I feel that this kind of spiritual connection is important when you're grieving someone who was so connected with you that you could feel their emotions. I mean, think of how many people would feel better if they just knew that their loved ones, even after death, were there. The best example of death we see on screen is the Metkayina interacting with a Tolkun. When a Tolkun soul brother or soul sister dies, it is a loss that vibrates through the entire community. But the grief is balanced by the knowledge that the spirit of the Tolkun has returned to the Sea of Souls. And when you think of death like this cycle, where you borrow energy from the great Ewa and then return it when you die, there is no reason to want to live forever. The energy is going to go back anyway. There is no ego, no desire to outlive everyone, no desire to become immortal, and that makes death a lot easier to deal with. And then, after someone passes away, their memories, their experiences, and everything are connected to the spirit tree, giving them a sense of immortality. Everyone who comes after them knows that they will be able to know about the experience of their great-grandfather or their great-great-grandfather just by connecting. And then, on the other side of it all, you have the Ash people. Their people remember the pain of being forgotten by Ewa. They remember the horrors of surviving the death of so many members of their clan. They remember the pain, the anguish, the loneliness, and the lack of help. So that is why hate runs a lot deeper within them. The hatred they feel is generational, and it would take a lot more than one run-in with our heroes to resolve it. The more you look at the Na'vi, the more it becomes clear that they are completely different from us. James Cameron designed them with intentionality and a specific purpose. Every law, every clan has their own role, and all together, they prevent the collapse of the environment. Avatar keeps returning to these cultural details because the battles and the explosions only matter if we understand what is at stake. The fights we are watching on screen are literally the fight for a way of being that we, as humans, have mostly forgotten. This is a way of being where we are one with nature. We are not alone, and you have a purpose far greater than yours, so you never feel lost. Comment down below what you guys think about the Na'vi. Which clan's way of life resonates the most with you? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you all next time. Later!